Between the drought of Africa and the streets of Rome, a man carries only a wooden cross and a promise. His journey, marked by loss, faith, and unlikely encounters, shows that true love can cross deserts, seas, and seemingly unreachable destinies. Ilyas M'Baku woke up before the sun rose. The thatched roof of the small hut couldn't hide the first lights of dawn that seeped through the cracks. His eyes, still heavy with sleep, opened slowly as his fingers instinctively reached for the small wooden cross he kept under the rustic pillow. The cross was all that was left of his mother, aside from memories and responsibilities. "My son, never stop believing that God has a path for you," were her last words, spoken between dry coughs and trembling hands. That night he promised to take care of Amara, his younger sister, as if she were his own daughter. "Ilyas, are you awake?" Amara's gentle voice interrupted his thoughts. "Yes, little one, we have a lot of work today." Amara, at 16 years old, was the reason Ilyas got up every morning. She was intelligent, curious, and had a notebook where she wrote down words in English, French, and Italian that she learned from foreign volunteers. Her dream of studying medicine was his dream too. The small house was on the outskirts of a village in the heart of Africa, a region where drought seemed permanent and resources scarce. Ilyas had become known as an excellent guide and interpreter for humanitarian organizations that visited the region. His knowledge of languages, self-taught from books left by missionaries, and his ability to navigate different cultures made him a sought-after man. "Who's coming today?" asked Amara, while preparing corn porridge on the small fire outside the hut. "A team of doctors from the UN. Italians, I think. They're going to set up a temporary medical post to treat malnourished children." "Doctors?" Amara's eyes sparkled. "Can I go with you?" Ilyas smiled. In another time, he might have hesitated, worried about the dangers of the journey, but her enthusiasm for medicine made him yield more and more. "You can, but you're going to help, not just watch. We'll be useful." The walk to the meeting point took almost 2 hours. The sun scorched the red earth, and Ilyas shielded Amara with a cloth over her head. On the horizon, the UN vehicles appeared like mirages, raising dust. That's when Ilyas saw her for the first time. Valentina Rossi got out of the jeep with movements that were determined yet gentle. Her brown hair was tied in an improvised bun, and her eyes, a deep green, seemed to absorb every detail of the arid landscape. She wore a simple t-shirt with the UN emblem, cargo pants, and walking boots. Nothing about her indicated her privileged background, except perhaps the delicacy of her hands, which had never known manual labor. "You must be Ilyas, our guide," she said in English, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Valentina Rossi." The touch was brief, but Ilyas felt something inexplicable, as if that hand could heal more than just diseases. "Welcome, doctor. This is my sister, Amara. She dreams of becoming a doctor one day." Valentina smiled at the girl, a genuine smile that carried neither pity nor condescension, only recognition. "It's a wonderful dream, Amara. Maybe one day we will work together." That simplicity in her manner surprised Ilyas. Most foreigners looked at local children with a mix of compassion and detachment. Valentina seemed different. The medical post was set up in an abandoned school. Dr. Lorenzo, a middle-aged man with gray hair and an experienced look, efficiently supervised the team while Valentina took particular care of the children. Ilyas observed, translating instructions and reassuring the fearful parents. He noticed how Valentina had a special way with each child, treating them not as numbers or cases, but as whole and complete people. "They trust you, Ilyas," said Valentina at the end of the first day, when a mother, initially reluctant, finally allowed her feverish baby to be examined after his intervention. "Without you, I would just be another foreigner. And without you, doctor, they wouldn't have hope of seeing their children alive tomorrow," he replied with a shy smile. Something was growing between them, a silent connection built on the common ground of service. The nights in the medical camp became moments of confidences. While the team slept, Ilyas and Valentina talked under the starry sky, one of the few luxuries in that forgotten place. "Why did you choose medicine?" he asked one night while they shared a bitter tea. Valentina remained silent for a moment, her eyes reflecting the stars. "My mother died when I was 12 years old. Cancer. I was there, watching the doctors trying everything, some with genuine care, others just following protocols. I promised myself that I would be of the former type, she sighed. And you? How did you learn so many languages? Survival, at first. Then it became my connection to the world beyond this village. Each new word was like a window opening. In the following weeks, the medical mission faced increasing challenges. An epidemic of diarrhea ravaged the region, and children began arriving increasingly debilitated. Valentina worked tirelessly, sleeping only a few hours each night. It was during one of these nights of exhaustion that she finally broke down. A 3-year-old girl, who resembled Amara when she was little, did not survive the severe dehydration, dying in Valentina's arms. Ilyas found her behind the medical post, sitting on the ground, her face buried in her knees. She weighed so little, Valentina murmured, without raising her face. How can a life weigh so little? Ilyas sat down beside her, without touching her, respecting her space. You can't save everyone, but you can save those whom God places before you, he said in a low voice, sharing a wisdom he had learned at the cost of many losses. Valentina raised her face, the tears leaving trails in the dust that covered her cheeks. Sometimes I wonder if I make any real difference. The difference you make is greater than you can see, Ilyas replied, feeling his heart race at the realization of their closeness. Every child you touch, every mother you reassure, it remains, like ripples in water. That night, something changed. There were no kisses or promises, just a profound understanding that transcended words. Two souls who, despite such different origins, shared a vision of service and hope. The mission ended sooner than both would have liked. The jeep that would take Valentina back to the capital, where she would catch a flight to Rome, was loaded and ready. Dr. Lorenzo had already said his goodbyes and was waiting in the vehicle. "We will meet again," said Ilyas, almost like a prayer, while holding firmly the small wooden cross in his pocket. Valentina hesitated, as if she wanted to say something more, but just nodded. "Take care of Amara, and yourself." The jeep departed, raising red dust that seemed to want to prolong her presence, forming a curtain that slowly dissipated, just like the hope in Ilyas' heart. The following months were filled with an inexplicable emptiness. Ilyas continued his work, guiding other teams, translating other needs, but something had changed within him. The words no longer flowed with the same ease, and the starry sky seemed less bright. Amara noticed the change in her brother. "You should go after her," she said one night while studying by the light of a lamp. "Don't be foolish. Rome is another world. People like us don't belong in places like that." "People like us belong where our heart is," she replied, with wisdom beyond her years. "Mom always said that God has a path for you. And what if that path is across the sea?" Amara's words stayed with him for days. The idea seemed absurd. Crossing the Sahara, traversing the Mediterranean, reaching a city he knew only from old magazine photos. No money, no contacts, only the faith his mother had taught him to nurture. The decision came one early morning, while he looked at the wooden cross in his hands. If God had a path, he needed to be brave enough to follow it. "I will come back for you, Amara," he promised, leaving her in the care of an aunt. "And when I return, I will have the means to fulfill your dream of studying medicine." The crossing of the Sahara was brutal. Ilyas joined a group of migrants attempting the same dangerous route. During the day, the sun scorched his skin. At night, the cold made his bones tremble. Water was rationed, and food was scarce. He watched fellow travelers fall behind, too exhausted or too ill to continue. At certain moments, the faith that drove him seemed to falter under the weight of harsh reality. On a particularly hot afternoon, when his last drops of water had run out, Ilyas fell to his knees on the scorching sand. His vision blurred, and he was certain he would die there, anonymous, miles away from everything he loved. "Lord, if you have brought me this far, do not let me die now," he murmured, feeling his consciousness fade. "If it is your will, guide me to Rome." When he awoke, he was in the shade of an improvised tent. An elderly Bedouin offered him water in an aged canteen. They did not speak the same language, but the shared humanity transcended words. This was just the first of many miracles that marked his journey. At every critical moment, when all seemed lost, something or someone appeared. A group of volunteers distributing food in an improvised camp. A fisherman who agreed to take him on his small boat across the Mediterranean. A priest who offered him shelter in a parish on the outskirts of Rome. The Eternal City welcomed Ilyas with the indifference typical of large metropolises. In the busy streets, no one noticed yet another immigrant, thin and wearing clothes worn out by the journey. The wooden cross, now hanging around his neck, was his only valuable possession. Finding Valentina seemed like an impossible mission. Rome was immense, and he had no address, phone, or any means of contact. He started by visiting hospitals, showing the only photo he had, an improvised record of the medical group, taken by Amara on the last day of the mission. He was met with suspicious looks, closed doors, and occasionally some kindness that led to nothing concrete. He slept in shelters when there were vacancies, or on park benches when there were none. After weeks of fruitless searching, Ilyas found temporary work in a bakery. The owner, an elderly man named Giuseppe, noticed his determination and offered him not only a job, but also a small room at the back of the establishment. "Everyone in Rome is looking for something," said Giuseppe, in Italian, which Ilyas could now understand reasonably well. "Some look for the past, others for the future. You seem to be looking for something deeper." With a roof over his head and food guaranteed, Ilyas was able to reorganize his search. He discovered that there was a community clinic that assisted immigrants and undocumented people in the suburbs of the city. Something told him that if Valentina was in Rome, she would be in a place like this. On an autumn morning, when golden leaves covered the sidewalks, Ilyas headed to the clinic. The building was simple, old, with a modest sign announcing free care. In the waiting room, people of various nationalities waited, some with children in their arms. "May I help you?" asked a receptionist, noticing his lost look. "I'm looking for Dr. Valentina Rossi," he replied, in hesitant Italian, showing the worn-out photo. The woman examined the picture, then smiled. "Dr. Valentina is in office 3, seeing patients. You can wait if you have an appointment scheduled." Ilyas's heart raced. After so much time, so many kilometers, so many trials, she was just a few meters away. He sat down, gripping the wooden cross tightly, while trying to organize in his mind what he would say. The hours dragged on. Patients entered and left consultation room 3. Finally, when the sun was already beginning to set, the door opened and there was no one left in the waiting room except Ilyas. Valentina came out, wearing a white coat over a simple blouse, her hair tied up as he remembered, but with a few new gray streaks. She seemed tired, but her green eyes maintained the same sparkle of determination. When she saw him, she stopped abruptly, as if she had seen a ghost. "Ilyas," she murmured, incredulous, before tears began to stream down her face. He stood up, his legs trembling after the long wait. "I walked through the desert to fulfill my promise, to meet you again." The embrace that followed was more than a reunion. It was a confirmation that some paths, no matter how improbable they may seem, are traced by something greater than our limited understandings. That night, sitting in a small cafe near the clinic, they shared everything that had happened during the months of separation. Valentina recounted how she had returned different from Africa, how her work in the elite hospital had lost its meaning, leading her to open the community clinic. "Every child I attend to here reminds me of those days, of that place. Of you," she confessed, her fingers lightly touching his calloused hand on the table. Ilyas spoke about his journey, the dangers, the moments of despair, but also the small miracles. He talked about Amara, who now lived with her aunt, but whose dream of studying medicine remained alive. The following months were filled with adaptation and discoveries. With Valentina's help, Ilyas managed to regularize his situation, learn Italian fluently, and begin working as a cultural mediator at the same clinic, assisting immigrants in navigating the Italian healthcare system. Amara came to Rome a year later, thanks to a scholarship program for foreign students that Valentina helped to find. Seeing her wearing a white lab coat, even as a student, was the fulfillment of a promise that Ilyas had made to her mother long before. The wedding of Ilyas and Valentina was simple, conducted in the small chapel near the clinic. Dr. Lorenzo, who had kept in touch with Valentina, came especially for the ceremony. Giuseppe, the baker who had taken Elias in, prepared the cake. The wooden cross, now restored, occupied a place of honor on the altar. Today, 4 years after that desperate crossing of the desert, Elias coordinates integration projects for migrants in Rome, while Valentina continues her work at the clinic, now expanded thanks to donations and partnerships. Together, they have created a support network that helps people who, like Elias, have crossed seas and deserts in search of a better life. Amara is in her 3rd year of medicine, determined to return to Africa as a trained doctor and contribute to her community. In lectures they give to raise awareness about the reality of migrants, Valentina often shares, "God uses unexpected encounters to write eternal stories. I went to Africa to save children, but it was there that I found the man who would transform my life." And Elias, always with the wooden cross around his neck, responds with the serenity of someone who has found his path. The desert was not the end. It was the path God chose to unite us. In his modest home on the outskirts of Rome, where the sunset vaguely resembles African evenings, they often look up at the starry sky, the same sky that witnessed their first conversations, and that, despite the geographical distance, always kept them under the same divine canopy. Elias' journey through the Sahara was not just a physical crossing, but a pilgrimage of faith, the living proof that when love is true, not even the vastest of deserts can prevent two hearts from meeting.